Will J.D. Vance run for president in 2028? The short answer is I think so. But of course, we're trying to have some fun with this, so we'll go through and look at some of the pieces of evidence and his chances and whatnot. To start this off, this is one of the few people where I can say with almost certainty that barring any major scandal, you're going to get him trying to run in 4 years. He's very ambitious. He is someone that's trying to climb up the ladder as quickly as he can. And the only thing I could see that could cause him to maybe consider not running for president in 2028 is that his Senate seats would be up for another term. So he would have to choose between either or excuse me, he'd either have to pick between running for senator or president, or have them possibly change the Ohio laws to allow him to run for both offices at once. This is the same thing that Booker, the New Jersey senator, the Democrat, his strategy during 2020 was to run for the Senate and for president at the same time. Same thing with Rand Paul and Rubio. So there's always that as like the one thing that could make me consider him not running. But if you look at most recent presidential tickets, there is a tendency for the running mate to not run. Like there were a lot of us who thought Palin was going to run in 2012. She didn't. There were a lot of us who thought Paul Ryan would run in 2016. He didn't. So besides, and go back even further, we thought Cheney was going to run in 2008. He didn't. Um, for some reason, a lot of these Republican either vice presidents or vice presidential candidates don't want it themselves. On the Democratic side, you saw this with Tim Kaine, where right after he and Clinton were defeated by the Trump Pence ticket, he was like, "Yeah, I'm not running for president. I just want to be a senator. I'm fine with where I am now." And he's passed two chances to run for president. Well, technically one, because none of the Democrats were brave enough to primary Biden, of the office holding ones anyway. But yeah, Vance would enter a pretty crowded primary. Like I think the 2028 Republican primary is probably going to be the biggest one since 2016, if not even larger than that. Just a whole bunch of people. I could make a whole hour-long video breaking down each one if I wanted to. But he'd enter a crowded primary, and the only person that I think would be a serious challenger to him is Tucker Carlson. I said before, someone like Cruz is a joke, has been. Cotton is boring. I think Vance would enter with the name recognition and the heir apparent status as Trump's designated successor to be able to win the primary. And whether Trump wins this time around or doesn't, it really will not change his chances, because if Trump wins, he can say, "I've been the vice president for 4 years. I've been an understudy. I want to keep the America First movement going." And if he loses, Vance can say, I'm here to right the wrongs that they stole the election from Trump not once but twice. All the fake nonsense. But he would enter that primary and not really have any major person that could defeat him besides Carlson, who jury's still out on that one if he would run or not. I do make some Katie Britt jokes, but that's just because I find her more interesting than Vance. Now, if Vance were the nominee, he'd already have several problems out of the gate. Like people talk about Harris being a flip flopper, Vance is just as much. For some reason, a lot of these politicians, except people like Bernie Sanders, are not very consistent when it comes to their positions. So you have the things Vance said about Trump in the past, of him being like a certain chancellor of Germany, and his opponents could easily say, "Why would we trust you if just a few years ago you were besmirching the very man that picked you to be his VP?" And you have to also understand, a lot of people don't know this, but Trump supporters they have they have a common person they like, which is Trump himself. But many of the people around Trump, as soon as he loses favor with them or they lose favor with Trump, they're out of there. Pence went from being Trump's understudy, his VP, to now being a pariah in his own party, literally just over certifying the election results. Um, Haley was Trump's UN ambassador, and I saw a bunch of Never Nikki signs being plastered and filtered and thrown all over the place that I guarantee would not have been there if she just waited until 2028. DeSantis was another supposed successor who now is ridiculed as Meatball Ron and Ron DeSanctimonious. So Vance, theoretically, by running in a year that Trump doesn't run, might not run into this problem, but the other point of I'm making here is that even if you were to hypothetically get Trump to endorse Vance, to tell everybody vote for him, we know for a fact that a lot of these endorsements don't actually, what's the way of putting it? Politicians' endorsements do not affect or do not guarantee the outcome of the election for the person they have endorsed. It's the best way to put it. That just because Trump endorses you, and we saw this in the 2022 midterm, it doesn't mean you're going to win the office. But if Vance is able to get nominated and beat out the double trouble of Tucker Carlson and Katie Britt, still joking about that second one, he's going to run into a problem because he's most likely, presuming that Harris wins, he'll run against Harris, who's trying to get a second term. And if Harris doesn't win, it'll be some other Democrat, most likely. He's going to run into some problems by default. One of them is that childless cat lady comment. I don't care what anybody says. In an era where the birth rate in the United States is lowering, is getting smaller and smaller, and people like me, we want to have children, but we can't find a partner. No, or these different women that say they want to have kids, which makes it even more impossible. Looking for a needle in a haystack, whatever the different machinations that cause this. But it is ridiculous to insult a growing section of voters over a life choice that does not affect anyone in a negative way whatsoever. So that's going to be something that gets brought back up. And he can do his whole, the Democrats are anti family, all that nonsense. But the point is, those comments have hurt him. They have been something that he's had to walk back, try to step away from, or, I didn't mean it in this particular way. It was just a really stupid thing for him to say. And it was very self destructive when it didn't need to be. So those comments will be resurfaced and used again. And I think that his only real chance is breaking down the South, which will go for him automatically as a Republican candidate. And even in states like Georgia, right? I don't think he'd be able to hack it. I'm not going to say the same thing about Arizona because I know that as someone from Ohio, he can go, I'm more part of the moderate wing, or at least try to like position himself in that way. But it really just comes down to who the Democrat is and if he's able to appear less extreme than Trump, who's had net negative ratings for as long as I can remember. um, it's a really disturbing thought to think about too, that you can have someone who just insults the voters in this like very brazen way that I don't even think most politicians would dare to do. And he's like, oh yeah, I can still become president if I just win this state and fly over here and get these electoral votes there. I will say they always talk about like the liberal media, all the rest of that, but it's really unfortunate that the people who, because like, I don't think anyone should trust Vance at all. I've the shifting of positions on Trump alone is already like snake oil salesman. I don't think there's a politician I trust less active in politics right now more than Vance. I'd say the only other exception is probably Tulsi Gabbard because of her complete turnabout. But yeah, he's someone who is ambitious. He's someone who I think if he had to pick between being senator for another 6 years or running for president, he probably would pick the latter. And at the same time, I don't think he has the crossover appeal of someone like Tucker, or I mean, even someone like Britt, who I mentioned in a joking way, but like I don't see what his appeal is to a broader electorate. Maybe he can win a primary. Again, I think that is mostly hinged on if Tucker does not run. If Tucker runs, I think he has no chance. No chance. Vance should be the. You know what? If he runs for president, and like let's say they do polls, right, and he's not in leading, or maybe he's like one of the top people, but it goes down. That's gonna be my nickname for him. No chance, Vance. But I mean, it's just because I like the guy is someone who flip flopped, had wrote a book that was okay, whatever, and then became a senator, did nothing for a year and a half, got picked to be Trump's VP, and I guess he hopes that he can like coast off of that to being in the White House himself, but I don't think it's going to work out for him. But again, maybe I could be wrong. I don't pretend to have a crystal ball. I think that Tucker and a lot of the other people that could run are more interesting than Vance. If I think if he runs for president and loses, he'll probably try to run again, or he'll be on that Senate seat for like two terms and then just get out of there. I think he's trying to strike the iron while it's hot, and the iron is for some people not even warm to begin with.